Hello everyone and welcome to an LSJ late review for From Beyond. From Beyond is a 1986 horror movie and it's the movie that director Stuart Gordon directed after Reanimator. So this is his follow-up movie. Also features some of the same actors. So we've got Barbara Crampton as Catherine McMichaels, and then we've got Jeffrey Combs as Dr. Crawford Tillinghast. So it's good to see those two back for another flick. We've also got Brian Usner as the producer and Richard Band on the music. But Richard Band's music's not too bad this time. Did the job. So I think the worst of his music for me was maybe watching the first couple Puppet Master flicks. And it was more so Reanimator 2, Bride of Reanimator, more than Reanimator, which was kind of fine. And also the theme, as the credits roll at the start, is original. It doesn't sound like Psycho, so I'll give him that. Now, the general gist of From Beyond is this guy named Dr. Edward Pretorius and Dr. Crawford Tillinghast, who's Jeffrey Combs. They're working on something called the Resonator. Now, it's this kind of device that stimulates the pineal gland and it lets you see, from beyond, which is another plane of existence or something like that. It's never fully explained, which is, I guess, a very Lovecraftian thing, which I find fucking annoying. Which is probably why I liked Reanimator so much, because, things are more straightforward and defined. I don't like my indefinable horror that much. I like it quite definable and tense, which I did mention in my review for The Colour Out of Space. So they have this resonator, stimulates the pineal gland, and Dr. Edward Pretorius, man, that's a mouthful, that name. What happens is something from beyond bites his head off, and you think he's dead, but no, his mind has crossed over into the beyond, and shenanigans happen from that. So Jeffrey Combs' character, Dr. Crawford Tillinghast, is in a nut house because, headless body. I've seen weird creatures and shit. No one believes him, of course, except for Dr. Catherine Michaels, played by Barbara Crampton. Really liked Barbara Crampton in this. I do prefer her character in this than I do the one she played in Reanimator. In Reanimator, she was a bit of a damsel. And her character does evolve into a damsel, I guess, in this flick too. But at least for the first half of the movie, she's a pretty strong character. Then it kind of devolves into 80s nudity and sexuality and stuff. And yeah, it kind of goes to those places, kind of like Reanimator did. But Reanimator had this over-the-top kind of fun tone. This one's more of a horror movie for sure. I do want to point out that a man named Ken Foree, or Ken Foree, I don't know how to pronounce his surname, I do apologise. He's in this. I marked out, recognised him straight away, maybe not the actor's name, but I recognised the face. He is in Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero classic. And he's in this for a bunch of the movie, but I did say straight away, this man's going to die, and he did. So, there you go. It's a horror trope that I wish would bloody piss off, but there it is. The movie starts with experimenting, just the same way Reanimator kind of did. So, Jeffrey Combs could have been typecast there as a mad scientist for the rest of his career. Instead, he was more typecast as aliens, but that's perfectly fine. There's also a reference in this to the Miskatonic University, which is the university that was in the Reanimator movies. It turns out the Miskatonic University is a H.P. Lovecraft thing that turns up in some of his stories. Turns up here. I enjoyed the first half of this movie a lot more than the second half. I like the build-up. I like of the characters and the setting and the situation. And I liked it when they started turning on the resonator, the three of them being Ken Foree, whose character is Bubba Brownlee, Catherine McMichaels and Crawford Tillinghast. They're turning it on. They want to see if they can figure out what's going on with Dr. Pretorius, and just to see if Crawford is sane and not totally crazy and decapitated his mentor. But he's very much alive. And he keeps coming back through the resonator to kind of fuck with the three characters. And they turn the machine off, and then but the machine's already affected their pineal glands and the way they think and act. And then then one of them turns the machine on. This is Catherine McMichaels. Turns it off, and then the machine starts turning itself on. So there's got to be the way for the plot. The only way for the plot to really move in this movie is if the machine starts to get going back on, because you can just defeat this baddie by turning the resonator off. Well, now it can turn itself on, and all this kind of weirdness, and I like that. But the second half of the movie, I found less interesting, mostly because I find Pretorius is not that interesting a villain. There's not much of a discussion of what he found on from beyond, or what he's capable of, or anything like that. I mean, he does say he can do this and that, but it's very vague. And there's also this weird bondagey kind of sexual element in the undercurrent. You see it, a bit of it at the start. There's a short clip of what Pretorius is like to women, which carries on even when his brain is from beyond, and it affects Barbara Crampton's character in a way that it is very 80s horror. You've got a beautiful woman in the movie, I guess you've got to have her naked in it. You don't. She was already a pretty cool character, and you don't need to have cool characters be nude in order for them to be interesting or anything like that. So when she starts getting affected through the pineal gland, I think it's on this side or this side, I don't know. I might be pointing at the wrong part of my brain. When she gets infected by all this stuff, she starts wearing like black leather, like a G-string, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, isn't she a doctor? Like, shouldn't she be trying to figure out a more scientific way and helping Crawford and all that, instead of all this kind of weirdness? And because of all this, Pretorius seems a bit one note. Like, all he cares about is women and being grotesque and shocking people and things like that. It doesn't seem like he'd be much threatening for very long, I guess. I just thought we needed a more three-dimensional kind of villain for this. They chose an actor who does have that creepy male factor, which is definitely a thread that was in fucking Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator and Beyond Reanimator. You know, this sleazy sex pervert who goes on to be an evil sleazy sex pervert. Which, wow, yeah, that's 4 movies with these kind of themes. So is Lovecraft full of this kind of stuff too? Because if so, I'm not sure I really like the dude. I don't know. I'm not a prude at all. I do like my nudity. Well, you know, who doesn't like seeing beautiful people stripped down and all that? But yeah, it just really didn't. It really didn't work. It felt kind of shoehorned in, all that kind of element. And I'd rather they stick to the kind of the horror and the science parts of it, because they were much more interesting than all this other kind of weird psychosexual stuff. I'm going to give From Beyond a 5 out of 10. The music's not bad. The acting's pretty decent. The concepts are interesting, but they're not taken into a place that kind of builds on that in a very fun or interesting way. The horror effects and makeup look absolutely fantastic, but as I said, I'm not too huge on the second half. I thought it was a bit of a letdown, and I kind of dragged the movie down. It was 90 minutes, that's fine. It wasn't boring, but I just sat there with a kind of, really? Look on my face during the second half, which ain't too good. So, there it is. No more horror movies for a couple of reviews, I think. I'll do do a couple of different genres. But thank you very much for watching. Give me a like, dislike, share and subscribe. All that kind of shit. And follow me on the Twitter. The link's also down below. Thank you very much.